And good morning, everybody. It is Fabulous Friday featuring John Launius discussing a love story. Okay, John, take it away. Tell us more.
Claudia, first of all, thank you so much. You are really a shining light in the world of hypnosis, and you do amazing, amazing work with people. Obviously, through the buddy
Money.
process, and yeah. So just first of all, I just really want to thank you for all of the great teaching and support that you've given me over the years, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about this book. So when I was 9 years old, my I asked my grandfather. I said, "Tell me about the war." He and my grandmother both were in World War II. They were in the Navy, and it's interesting that my grandmother actually outranked my grandfather. She had come from, actually, she was originally from Wales and then came to Nova Scotia, and then in Nova Scotia wanted to emigrate to the United States, and so World War II was a great opportunity to do that. But they both were in the Navy, and they would meet, they would fall in love. She would resign her commission as an officer, and then they would marry. But back to the story about being nine, I asked my grandfather about his time in the war, and he went to his desk, and it's the same desk that I actually wrote this book on, but he brought out what's behind me. He brought out literally about 43 letters, and he said, "John, these are the love letters between your grandmother and I." And he asked me, he says, "What do you think you're going to be when you grow up?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, do you think you might be an author?" And I said, "Maybe." He said, "Well, if you ever become an author, these letters tell a very important story between your grandmother and I." And so when my grandfather was 92 years old, my expertise in fragrance,
Yes.
but when my grandfather was 92 years old, he said, "John, I want you to teach me incense." And I said, "Well, I said, grandfather, I said, you're 92." And he says, "I'm not dead yet." And basically we spent 6 years together teaching him distinctions of world fragrance traditions, and also with the Japanese, which is a little ironic given that during that time he was attacked both by the Germans and by the Japanese, but used our time together, as well as one of the stories in the book. In the book, I talk about the Tani family, and the Tani family became friends with my grandparents after World War II, shortly after World War II. The Tanis were interred in one of the Japanese internment camps created by the U.S. government during World War II. Well, after that, this Japanese family and my grandparents, they became friends, and they used their friendship to heal and to grow after the war. But their youngest son, named Daniel, would go on to become the first Japanese American astronaut to reach the International Space Station. So as I started writing this book, I started discovering the story, and I reached out to Daniel Tani and told him about this story and connection to his parents and my grandparents, and he had no idea because he had been born last. And so Daniel Tani writes the foreword for the book, and it really tells the story of love and resilience. Um,
Mm.
but it's been an extraordinary story because I was able to quite literally see almost day to day their love story emerging during World War II. And so the book is coming into fruition. I sent it to about 10 publishers. They all came back and said it's a beautiful book, but we don't think it's going to sell at the level that we need. Since COVID, publishing has changed a lot, meaning that unless you're a star or unless you have a million social followers, which I don't, it's somewhat difficult to get published. But all of these publishers came back and said it's a wonderful book. So what I'm doing, Claudia, and thank you so much again, for the offer to chat about this, is that anybody who's interested in the book, you can pre-order the book at $25, and that gets us closer to actually getting it to publishing, which is going to happen late next week, and then we expect early in 2027 for it to be out. But Claudia, I would love for you to ask questions because this story is so deep and so wide. I'm just curious what you're curious about.
Yeah, so I didn't want to talk necessarily about all of what the brilliant things that you do, John, when I introduced you, because I know this is really important. We've got a time thing going on here as well, because
Right.
we do want this to come out. Okay, so I am curious. The writing, have you actually written it out yourself, or are the letters within the book?
Yeah, so what I did was that instead of putting the letters in the book, which are somewhat difficult to read because quite literally my grandfather was writing love letters on a ship in the Pacific. And so like some of them will be written at sea and you can totally tell they're written at sea. So so what I did was that I transcribed every letter. So all of the letters are in there, and there are beautiful imageries, photos and images that really expand the story. But these love letters, I mean, some days they're mundane. You know, my grandmother tells my grandfather about taking, his newborn daughter to the park. But then other times they're really talking about their future and hoping for the future because during World War II, over 100 million people lost their lives, and so it was a time frame where you weren't sure if you were going to be able to live the rest of your life with the people that you were partnered with, and so it's so moving and but just so human in so many different ways.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I completely get it. Okay. So not World War II, but my husband, he was Royal Navy,
Hmm.
and he was on the submarines, and we could only write to each other. Well, I could only send him 40 letters once a month,
Mm.
as in 40 characters. I mean, that was it, 40 little
Oh wow.
characters.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by the letters. Not stacked full. So
Hmm.
it was, and that was it. And I could only say everything was fine. And it actually wasn't, but it was. But I could only send anything that was very nice for people on the Submariner, on the submarines. So it's really interesting. This I'm loving this. I almost definitely get it, because I so understand that length of time, and what that means for people in the forces, and that fear all the time of what could happen. Again, when he was in Afghanistan, I was able to send him letters all the time, and literally did. There was like I sent him one every single day. It was like, what do I write now? So I did handprints of the children and footprints, and I sent him those.
Oh.
And it was, an English chocolate. It was so I get this. And yes, some of the letters that I got as well, because it wasn't always email,
Hmm.
by any means, and I've kept them all. I've got our love letters. so this is why when I went, oh yeah, I get that. I do, and I won't be the only one. So if I get this, how many other people out there, and from World War II, there were children of, will go, oh gosh, I get it. And they'll want to have that feeling. And you're quite right, it does build resilience, John.
Yeah.
It absolutely does, because I think there's a lot of lack of resilience nowadays, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think if we can share, and people go, oh my gosh, they did that, they lived through that, and they had to wait for another letter back. Whereas now it's like immediate,
Uh,
which is why people react instead of responding and having time to think over something.
yeah.
So, John, I love this. Thank you for being you and for doing this. Um, I'm very, very excited for you. I hope it does well. Is Grandad still with us?
No, I'm so. Again, both of them passed away. My grandmother went first, and then my grandfather followed about 10 years later. But I think one of the last points I'd like to make about this is that what's been extraordinary about this journey of telling the love letters between my grandparents during World War II is that it's allowed me to really understand them far, far deeper than I would have had they not have been retained. And so sometimes we might think that one letter or a couple of letters from somebody from a particular point in time may not mean anything, but it has deepened and expanded my experience of being human. The people that have looked at at the draft are just blown away by it. And so I am grateful that I found a publisher that gave me a path to publishing. Again, like I said, unless you have 1 million followers or you're famous, it's fairly difficult to get published. And so anybody who reaches out to me, you'll be able to pre-order the book, and then you'll get special messages from me, and there'll be a couple other special things along the way. So it's really easy to do. You can send me an email at pointjohn@gmail.com, reach out to me on any socials, and then, if you can't find me there, Claudia, I'm sure will send me
Yeah, of course I
Claudia
will.
back to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, John. So as I say, I put me down, please. I would be honoured to have one and sharing that, because I expect it's like you will go back in time, and yeah, I expect it'll be quite heart-wrenching at times. So as I know, I've lived it myself.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I like not to be dramatic, but I oftentimes, like, I've told my wife, I'm like, writing this book, I have literally, cried a gallon of tears, but wonderful. So, Claudia, again, thank you for the great work that you do in the world of hypnosis and other healing modalities. I am grateful for the time today, and look forward to chatting with you again really soon.
No, thank you, John. And yes, absolutely. Stay in touch. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for being on here, John. And everybody, get in touch with him or me and order your book. Okay, take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.